Hello, my name is Yudi, and this is the Yudi Factor, a program that understands that knowledge is power. And therefore, week after week, we discuss issues and empower you with information to enable you make informed choices, especially when you factor in something you've heard on the Yudi Factor into your situation. Today, we're going to be talking about agents. We're going to be talking about rents. We're going to be talking about landlords. You may know someone who's been a victim of crooked agents. How many times have you paid rent and you discover that 5 people have paid rent for the same property? What should the relationship between a landlord and a tenant be? Who should pay the tenement rates? Those are the questions we'll be empowering you with information as Claire gives us an answer. Claire is an expert in this field. She's Claire Chizie, estate surveyor stroke valuer, and the principal partner, C.A. Chizie & Co., a firm of estate surveyor and valuers. You'll be empowered with information, and that is if you do not go anywhere. We'll see you after this time out. You're welcome back. Claire, thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we have so many people who have been victims of agents. We have to hear agents. Some of them will ask for 15%. Some of them don't even know anything about a property. And they tell you they know who owns the property, and people have become victims, like we say in Nigerian parlance, one chance. So today, I'll ask to ask you, what should one look for in an agent?
For this particular discussion, we're talking about real estate, to deal with houses, to deal with properties. And that is why, because properties, you have a larger number of people who want accommodation either for office, commercial, industrial, or residential. And that is why the people who deal as agents are more exposed, because there are more people interested in the services they have to offer. One thing we must understand is that agency is usually a one-man business or small business people that carry out agency. Yes. Because it's a middleman kind of job between two parties. The third party being the coordinator or someone who brings two people together. So agency in itself is a form of contract between two parties. And the agent is the middleman who kind of anchors the agreement, helps one party to arrive at an agreement that is suitable for, be it the sale of a house or the lease of a house.
Or sale of a land.
Or sale of
property.
a land. So, because land, real estate is money, most people do not usually think about it as liquid cash. They don't think about how much they lose by not choosing the right sources of marketing or buying the real estate they use. So you find people just say, oh, an agent, somebody you just know by the way, and you pick the person. But it requires for you to have an agent. Agency requires a lot of moral values. And these values are integrity, honesty, and most people do not remember that moral values are the key to successful businesses. So when you have an agent who do not have those moral values, or an individual who do not have those moral values, you're bound to fall into the trap of what you earlier described about somebody going to pick up a property that has been given to somebody else. So in order to avoid that, you, the buyer or the lessee who wants to acquire a property, the responsibility rests a great deal on you. And you start first and foremost by doing a proper due diligence. And by due diligence, this means that whoever you want to be your agent, it has to be somebody you trust. It has to be somebody with integrity. It has to be somebody who has a background And for you to know that those things are available in that individual or the company, you have to ask some questions. And the questions begin first and foremost, how did you find that person? Is it through an introduction? And having now been introduced to that person, what do you know about that person? Remember I said this has to do a lot with moral issues, yes. Moral values. Yes. What do you know about the person? His financial standing, his relationships, his records. Does he belong to any institutions? For us in the real estate profession, principally estate surveyors and valuers, we have the advantage of having been trained as valuers and surveyors, which means if you take an estate surveyor and valuer as an agent, you have the double or triple advantage of having somebody who has the knowledge of the market, somebody who can tell you the value of the property, what it is worth, what you can get for it, and somebody who can advise you on how to manage your asset if you have bought it in order to give you maximum yield in terms of funds, if you want to resell it, or in terms of even living, because there are certain things that most people do not look out for when they buy a house or when they lease a property. But when you have a qualified surveyor who is an agent for you, there are things that you can look at. And one of the ways of identifying such a person is through the institution or the licenses. And I'm proud of my profession, so I'm here with, for any agent who belongs to the Nigerian Institution of Estate Surveyors and Valuers, you are covered. For two reasons, as I've explained. The person is qualified, can give you professional advice, can tell you what your property is worth, and at the same time, the individual, if he does misbehave in whatever form, you can report him to the institution, in which case your money is assured. And at the same time, you're getting real professional advice in what.
Hold the thought. Hold that thought. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Claire, let's come to people who do live it, communal living, the 1 rooms, 2 rooms, because it looks like they get cheated the most. You find out that they have agents. I don't know if those ones are estate agents, but they call themselves agents. And they receive as much as rent from 20 people for 1 room. In that kind of situation, how do you identify the one that is a true agent? How do you?
It's very simple. Even if you live in 1 room or you want to rent a shop of 10 square meters, the money is yours, and you have to guard that money. So the first thing you do, if somebody introduces an agent to you, get details about that person. And to secure you, you have to ask how many of that type of units has the person been able to rent to other people. Let him give you, say, okay, I did it for Mr. ABC. And then ask him, can I call Mr. ABC to confirm? If the person is dodgy, then of course, immediately you know you shouldn't be dealing with that person. But if the person gives you that number and the details, don't forget that in Nigeria of today, we have a lot of triple layers of people telling you they are this when they are not that. But at least you have taken 1 step. The mere fact that you're asking, and if he doesn't give it to you immediately, means that he doesn't have it. If he says, okay, I'm coming to bring it, then know he has gone to make an arrangement. So the point is that we are usually in a hurry to conclude every deal. And you find that they keep telling you, oh, if you don't pay today, somebody else is going to pay tomorrow. Immediately you hear that, you should be on your guard. Because if they have another person who has that purchasing power, who has that money to pay, he would have collected the money, it won't come to you. The mere fact that he's saying to you, Madam or Oga, if you don't bring this money by tomorrow, we will take another buyer. Tell him to go and release it to somebody else. you will find that 2 days later, that property is still in the market. So that is for that low level, the best thing to do.
What should be the relationship between a tenant and a landlord? Because sometimes you hear a lot of tenants when they go renting a house and they get to hear that the landlord is living in that particular property. They don't want to be, they say, no, I don't want to live with my landlord. What should be the relationship between a tenant and a landlord?
It depends. Tenancy is purely business relationship. We must understand that. And when you have a business relationship, you don't expect the other party to come asking you, how is your wife? Did you sleep well the next morning?
Unless he's coming to ask for his rent.
So it's a contract.
Okay.
And once you understand it's a contract, the contract has terms, and those terms must be obeyed. Where you do not obey them, that's where problem arises. Yes, in a situation where the landlord lives within the same compound as the tenant, it creates a little bit of problem, and that is if the way and manner you got into that property is through the landlord directly. If you came in through a certified agent, as I had said earlier, who is a professional, when you're negotiating for the lease, the terms would have been spelled out. So the landlord knows his responsibilities, his limitations.
What should be the content of a tenancy agreement?
It depends.
Okay.
Depends on what is negotiated.
Okay.
You have 2 standard forms. You have what they call the full repairing and insuring lease, which means you go into a lease where you, as the tenant, you're responsible for everything. Repairs, maintenance, and even the insurance. When you enter such a lease, the landlord has little or no responsibilities other than
to come and collect his rent.
Collect his rent and allow you full and peaceful enjoyment of the space within the period you meet those covenants.
Okay.
The other type is where you have a divided responsibility, where the landlord pays certain of those charges, taxes, tenement rates, some form of maintenance, which is largely structural. And then, of course, he has a right to come in from time to time to see how the house he has rented to you, whether you're using it in the manner that you're supposed to. It should also contain the terms of termination of the lease.
There's a process to buying a property. There's a process to renting a property. So what is the process? How do we go until you conclude the process?
If you want to buy a house or rent a property, the first question is, what do you want? There are 2 sides to it. What you do an internal examination or questioning of yourself. What do you want? Do you want a house? Do you want a flat? The neighborhood? What kind of life do you want to live? Are you a night person? Are you a social person? So once you have settled those questions, then you now decide, okay, I like nightlife, so I want where I can easily go out at night and buy suya. Or I like a quiet life, so I want somewhere I don't want any noise. So once you have made that decision, the next thing is to scout for agents who will help you within and give you an overview of the type of locations or neighborhoods that fits your own ideals. Once it's giving you that, the next thing you now work on your budget. This is still on your own self.
Yes.
How much can you afford, depending on your source of livelihood? Once you've made that decision, you now arrange for your funds. And once you have decided you want to spend an X amount of money, try not to exceed it. You would now give your agent, whom you must have chosen based on those moral values I had explained earlier, in which you have found out that he's not the kind of person who will take your money and run or take you to somebody who will cheat you. Then you now get your agent to scout for houses that meet those ideals you have already explained to him. And then you must give him or her or the firm a letter of authority to act on your behalf. The same thing if you're selling. It's the same process. When you have done that, then the agent will scout around, look for a number of houses, call you, you come and take a look at them. When you go to take a look at them, there are certain things you must look out for, which your agent himself or herself must have done. That's why he's your agent. That's why you're paying him.
Yes.
But you still also have to do it, because at the end of the day, you will live in that house and you will ask. And the things you have to look out for, there's things that, maintenance issues. You may not know unless you really look out from the beginning. This house you're going into, no matter how new a house looks like, there are things that will cost you a lot of money eventually when you begin to live in them. The roof, the type of roof that is there, the slope. You may find new houses, they are leaking. Why? Because they are at the joints, they have used asphalt, and asphalts don't join properly. And then the kind of roof that is there, you find you have yourself problems with leakages, the ceiling and all that. And you may keep calling the landlord and he won't answer you.
So after he's collected his money.
Of course. So you must look out for that. Ask your agent to help you. That's why you need, because an estate surveyor and valuer is trained to understand a building. For you to value a building, you must know the parts of the building, how it works. But a mere agent doesn't know that. A mere agent will simply come, this is the 3 bedrooms, madam is 3 naira, take it. But an estate surveyor looks into all these issues I'm talking about. Then he looks at the window. The critical thing that makes the house expensive is the maintenance issues. So you must take a look at those. You must look at the room size. You must also take a look at, for you to find out by looking at the windows, the floors, and look at for cracks. When you have not slight cracks, but major cracks around the joints, then you know you're going to have a problem. There are structural issues there. So those are the things you must look out for. And then again, you look out for hidden costs, especially if you're buying. They can tell you a house costs 300 naira.
Yes.
Have you factored in the cost of agreement?
Hold the thought. Hold that thought. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about estate agency, how you can rent a house, how you can buy a property, and how you can find an estate agent with integrity. You're welcome back. So Claire, the same thing goes for land, where people actually sell one land to 20 people. And then before you know it, some people will come and appear and say the land belonged to their forefathers. What do we do so that we don't fall a victim?
Two issues there. Land, the two issues first, who is the owner? And you can only find the owner through the document. You must ask for the document, the title document. And in Nigeria right now, based on the land use decree, you have only 2 kinds of documents. One is a deed of assignment. And those deeds are usually between 2 parties from an original owner, and the person has not perfected it by getting a C of O. Yes. And the deeds that you have between the villagers and the person who had bought it originally. Now, when you buy land with a deed, that is where it's a little bit tricky. You now find that the villagers who have sold it still are interested in making more money.
Yes.
So what you do in such an instance, first and foremost, make sure whoever is selling it to you has a letter of authority. Whoever the agent is must show you evidence that he has the authority to represent the owner or owners of that land. Once you have received that, then you can now go and search to know whether it's under government acquisition. If it's not under government acquisition, you will now find out if there's any other person claiming such. And the only way to find out if there's any other person claiming such is to go back to, especially when it's ancestral land, ask for the village head. They will tell you that the people who sold it before were not authorized, that they now have a new committee who is in charge. So what you do, if you are really interested in that property, that's why if you have a proper agent, all those things would have been settled. So what that person will advise you to do is, assuming that land is going for 300 naira, you could tell you, okay, make an allowance for an additional 10 naira, which is going to go to the original owners. Because for two reasons. First, you may require them to sign documents for you to go and perfect the title with the government. But when that had been done, and you don't need those original owners, the only thing that will suffice is your ability to go and check for it in the land registry to make sure the land is clean and has no encumbrance.
I know people who have bought land, and all of a sudden, some other people will emerge from nowhere to say this land, the person who sold had no authorization to sell. This land belonged to our great-great-grandfathers. These ones were settlers. How do you go around such matter?
The only thing to do under those circumstances, if you've already committed your funds,
Yes.
which is your fault, because before you commit your funds, you must do due diligence, which is what I explained earlier. You must know who is introducing that land to you. Because there's a certain level of liability on agents or whoever brings a property to you to say buy, especially when you're buying. That person must, there's what we call professional negligence. And that is why you need a body that you can report to immediately. So if that individual has not done what he's supposed to do, you report to that body. The body will take necessary steps to sanction that person and, if possible, ensure that your money is returned. But if that person had done that due diligence and everything is as it should be, but the Nigerian factor comes in, which means an additional money needs to be spent,
Yes.
then you have to spend it because you have already committed a larger sum of money than what is being asked for.
What is the fee? Because you find out that some agents will tell you pay agency fee 10%, lawyers fee, legal fee 10%. Is there any fixed percentage that should be paid to an estate agent?
The law, as I said earlier, anybody can buy an agent. The law really is 10%.
10%.
But it has to be paid by who commissioned you. That is, if you commission an agent to find a property for you, you pay that person. The person who commissions an agent to sell for him, he pays that person. But what you do find is a situation where the person who owns the property says to the agent, I'm not paying any rent, go and get it from the
person, yes.
The person who is renting or who is buying. So in situations like that, you now find them asking for 20, 10%. That is wrong. So what professionals do in order, because your interest, until you have concluded a deal, you haven't worked, their interest is normally, okay, so if they're dealing with a fellow professional and they understand, so they agree to share their own fee, but it's between those agents. And you find more often than not, rarely will you find an estate surveyor and valuer getting into that kind of arrangement with agents, if I may use the word. And again, I think landlords or owners of properties have a lot of blame in the matter.
Yes.
Because you find in an attempt, so they want to get the best price, they commission 3, 4, 5 agents.
That is true.
And once you do that, you're exposing your property. And then you're exposing those people who also want to. Because when you have said 5 agents to manage your property or lease it or sell it, and you come to a property, you see 3, 4 boards. You go back that first thing I have said. Get the agent that has an authority, written authority. And if there are more than one with written authority, then know that the landlord himself is mischievous. And you don't even go there.
There are instances where, like you said, where there are maybe 4 or 5 agents, and you deal with an agent who already has the authorization to sell the property. You probably didn't go through that agent to get who has the authorization. And he brought you to the agent who has the authorization, which is what most people do. And then all of them now want you to pay them agency fee. Is that right?
No. In a situation where you have a double agency, and you have what we call runners in the profession. That is
runners.
Runners. We call them runners.
Okay.
Some people will come to a registered surveyor's office, pick up a list of properties they have, then go around to the grassroots to sell those properties. We call them runners. So those runners really are part of the main agent or the real estate firm. And that's why I said earlier, you must ask for his ID. So he'll tell you where that property is coming from. You now trace it back to the firm. Then you'll be confident that you're dealing with the right person. But where you find like 4 or 5 boards on a property, and you go through one, and it turns out he doesn't have the authority to deal on that property, he now takes you to the real person who has the authority. And you like it, you conclude the deal, you do your negotiation. The issue now comes on who gets the fee.
In most cases, they even pad, now that padding is in vogue, they even pad the rent. You can see a property, they say 10 million, and all of a sudden, with all the charges and everything, you now find 15 million. And they will tell you, this agent has to take this percentage, that agent has to take that percentage.
No, that is wrong. That is wrong. That is why before you part with your money, you must look at a draft agreement. The draft agreement should reflect what you have negotiated. If you negotiated 5 naira, you should so that rent is 5 naira. You should agree on the agency fee. If it's 10% you've agreed, you should state so. And that's why, again, I talked about the hidden charges, which you must know of. There are taxes, there are levies, there are parking fees, that if you do not ask and negotiate them ab initio, by the time you're looking at the rent, oh, the rent is low, it's 200 naira, the other person paid 500. By the time you finish, you find that you're paying more than that 500. So you must have a proper concept and understanding and use a professional. That's the only way you'll be saved from some of these harassments. But like I say, it is illegal to pay more than one agent on a property. But where the owner of a property says to his agent, I'm not paying you, it should be upfront from beginning, that the fee you are paying will be shared amongst all the agents, not for you to pay the owner's agent and pay for yourself and pay for all other people around. So what happens is that from that 10%, ordinarily, if you're dealing with only your own agent, you can negotiate your fee down to 5%, 2.5%, depending on the size of the budget.
How about the one they add the legal charges?
No,
Because sometimes they don't get even the lawyers, the legal parts.
Now, the legal charge, again, falls on you. Why it falls on you is that you must see the agreement that you're paying for. If they do not bring out an agreement for you to pay, then what are you paying the legal charge for? Of course, it's put as a totality of the package, and those are times you have to ask those questions. Who is your lawyer? If they say legal fee, who is the lawyer who will draft this? Or I have my lawyer to draft it. So by the time you ask those basic questions, that will automatically begin to eliminate those people who are out to cheat you. Because those who charge you a legal charge, say 10% lawyer, 10% this, when you say, where is the lawyer? And they don't tell you who their lawyer is. So why are you paying for that? So immediately they give you the lawyer's name and the lawyer's phone number. You call cross-check. So you are putting yourself ready in case something happens. But when you do not have data to support yourself if something goes wrong, then you are left in the limbo.
Before we close, one word to our viewers on this issue. What's the one word you'd like to leave them to live with?
Be very careful when you choose an agent. Don't just settle for any. You must know the person's background, track record, and where the person operates from.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you. Any fallout from this, we'll invite you to come and clarify issues. Now, viewers, I thank you for your time. It's been an eye-opener for me. Did you know that whoever commissions an agent must pay the commission? Did you know that? Well, I'm sure you've been empowered with information today. And with all the criteria you have now to choose an agent, you have no reason to fall into the hands of, in Nigerian parlance, one chance. Well, until I come your way another time, my name is Yudi, and this is My Factor. See you again next week. Goodbye.